My phone lit up with his name again, and I remember thinking everything he believed in was about to fall apart in real time. I let it ring while watching the second hand on the diner clock move slowly forward. Timing had always been everything in my world, and this moment was no different. At exactly 11 that meeting would begin, and for the first time in years I would not be the one holding everything together. I could picture Crystal standing in front of that conference room smiling too wide and pretending to understand a system she had never learned. Somewhere behind her Travis would be pacing, trying to maintain control with nothing but confidence. I sat in that cracked booth with my laptop open and coffee cooling in front of me. What I felt in that moment was not anger but something far sharper and clearer. For more than 20 years I had been the quiet force keeping everything running. I handled pressure, fixed problems, and prevented disasters before anyone noticed them. In one careless morning they removed me like I was nothing important. What they failed to understand was that I was not just a part of the system. I was the system itself, and without me everything would begin to break. The first real crack appeared faster than I expected when my phone buzzed at 11:07. It was a message from a warehouse supervisor in Ohio named Derek, who sounded confused and overwhelmed. He said 3 trucks had arrived with conflicting paperwork and no instructions at all. He asked who was coordinating everything, and I already knew there was no answer waiting for him. More calls started coming in from different places, and the pattern was the same everywhere. Confusion was spreading and uncertainty was taking over every part of the network. I watched it happen without rushing to respond because this was not chaos I created. This was the natural result of removing the one person who understood how things worked together. By 11:15 the silence inside the company had turned into noise everywhere else. Emails filled my inbox faster than I could read them, and every message carried the same question. No one was angry yet, but they were starting to worry, and that was always the first step before panic. I took a slow sip of coffee and let the moment stretch a little longer. Around noon Travis called again, and this time I answered. I let him speak first because people like him always reveal more when they feel in control. His voice was tight and different from earlier, and he asked what I had done. He did not ask what was happening because deep down he already knew the truth. I told him calmly that I had done exactly what any professional would do after leaving a position like mine. I explained that I had informed all vendors and partners about the change in representation. I reminded him of the clauses in the contracts that protected them from instability. There was silence on the line as he tried to understand what that meant. He asked me to fix everything like it was a simple task. There was no apology and no respect, just urgency and expectation. I leaned back and looked outside at the gray sky and the trucks moving down the road. I told him I no longer worked for the company and any help would require a formal agreement. At first he laughed, but it was empty and forced. When he realized I was serious, his tone shifted, and I could hear the pressure building around him. He said the system was freezing and drivers were stopping their routes. He said shipments were being delayed and money was being lost every minute. I let him finish and then told him something he would not forget. I said this was what happens when you remove the one person who understands everything. Systems do not collapse instantly, but they slowly fall apart piece by piece. Each missing connection creates another problem until nothing works anymore. When the call ended, I felt a mix of satisfaction and something heavier. I never wanted to destroy anything, and that had never been my goal. I simply stepped away and let reality take its course. The truth is that some companies rely more on people than they are willing to admit. The afternoon passed as the situation grew worse with every hour. Drivers were stuck, managers were confused, and partners were already losing trust. Then around 3 in the afternoon I received a call I had been expecting. It was not Travis this time, but his father calling from across the ocean. His voice was older but still sharp and focused. He did not waste time with small talk and asked me directly what had happened. I explained everything clearly without anger or exaggeration. When I finished there was a long silence that said more than words ever could. He finally spoke and asked if there was a way to stabilize things. Not to fix everything immediately, but to stop the damage from spreading. I told him there was a way, but it would not be easy or cheap. I explained what it would take to rebuild trust and restore operations step by step. He listened carefully and then said something that stayed with me. He said some lessons come with a price, and sometimes that price is necessary. By the end of that day the company was still standing but barely functioning. Everything was delayed and trust was broken across the board. I drove home that evening in silence without turning on the radio. For the first time in years I was not responsible for fixing everything. The quiet felt strange but also freeing in a way I had not expected. It was not the world that had changed but my place in it. In the weeks that followed, the company struggled to recover from the damage. They brought in new people and tried to patch problems quickly. But relationships take time and trust cannot be replaced overnight. Eventually they reached out to me again with a different tone. This time the offer was respectful and carefully structured. They finally understood my value and what I brought to the table. I took time to think about it because leaving had shown me something important. I did not need them the way they needed me. In the end I agreed to help, but only on my terms. I was no longer invisible and I was no longer replaceable. I worked independently and set clear boundaries that should have existed from the start. Slowly the system began to function again piece by piece. What matters most is that I did not destroy anything out of revenge. I did not act with anger or try to cause chaos. I simply told the truth at the exact moment it could no longer be ignored. Sometimes truth is the most powerful force because it exposes everything. When people ask how one email caused so much damage, I tell them it was not the message itself. The problems were already there, hidden under bad decisions and arrogance. All I did was remove the one piece holding